Okay boys, as promised, here is the HoTa build that I've been using to push AOC. We're actually watching a tier 19 run in the background here. That is on hardcore as well. And this build is insane. Hits up into over 1 billion with its overpowers. Like 200, 300 mil with a regular crit, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. And of course, it is damn near immortal thanks to the Melted Heart of Selig. But we're going to get into all of that in just a second. Just real quick though, before we break the build down, I want to answer a question I know a lot of people are going to want to ask, and that is, why am I not using Whirlwind? And there's sort of like two main reasons for that. The first is that the weapon swapping between Whirlwind and Hammer of the Ancients can feel really clunky, especially if you're on mouse on keyboard, and even more so if you have higher ping. And secondly, there's a bug with Whirlwind that when you dash after one or like during one, there's a very high chance that your character will become stunned. Like, you just won't be able to move, use any skills or anything like that for like a second or something. And that clunkiness and that sort of like unreliability, it isn't worth it for me. It's more often a frustration than anything else for that sort of minor DPS boost that you're going to get. And I mean, this build here that we're looking has all of the benefits, does all of the same things, but doesn't have to make those sacrifices, doesn't have to have those problems in it. So for me, this is just an easy win. And let's get into that build and break it down and what's different in this one from the previous iterations. This is, again, a balls to the wall build, so we'll be going through everything, but this is going to have a extremely high gear requirement. As far as Uber uniques go, we have a Harlequin's Crest, just an all-round W in terms of like damage, cooldown, utility, and defensive. So that's certainly something that you're going to want. Tybalt's Will is also a must. We have a pretty generic suite of aspects, at least on this side. We have Melted Heart of Selig. This was basically what allowing us to stay alive for practically forever. A Red Ring of Fura, and a Grandfather. Now, we're not running a Doombringer. Thanks to the changes to AOC, the damage in there is a lot lower than it was like before the hotfix. So we're able to get away with not having that and instead going for something with a little bit more damage. So we've got a just a one-handed mace or sword. It doesn't really matter. Sword is pretty good if you have Grandfather, of course. And then we've got all stat strength, berserking, and critical hit damage on it. Now, I stack a ton of critical hit damage where I can. It just has insane value. It seems like the Grandfather triples it instead of doubling it. So if you can get crit on your weapons and on your other ring, then definitely try and do that. And then we have Inner Calm on it. Now, you could use Retribution. I didn't have one, so I didn't get a chance to test it. And what that does gives you about 20% extra damage versus stunned enemies. This just gives you 30% after standing still for 3 seconds. And this actually works really, really well when you use it with Wrath of the Berserker, because you pop that, you use chains, because we do have steel grasp here to grab anything, and you start hammering it down, right? And you could do some pretty ridiculous damage. Like I said, overpowers over 1 billion, and even regular crits over 200 million. I still can't get over that. I'm going to keep talking about that a lot. Another thing that's a little unusual, I think, here is Bold Chieftains. Not many people are running this. Most people are running Unrelenting Fury. I'll tell you why I'm not. Unrelenting Fury gives you Fury back when you hit an enemy and kill it, or hit a boss. Now, in AOC, there are no bosses. And when you get into these really high tiers, you're definitely not always killing an enemy with every single Hammer of the Ancients. So you're basically getting next to no Fury from that a lot of the time. So we're going to go for Bold Chieftains and bring the cooldown of our shouts down by 6 seconds, which means we're going to have more uptime on the resource regen from Rallying Cry. We're going to have more uptime on the 22 or 26% damage boost from Warcry when it's at level 4. And then we're going to have the uptime on the damage reduction from Challenging Shout. Just an all-around win-win-win for us by having these up more often. So this is huge, and I've got to admit, it made my runs so much easier when I was using this, as opposed to I tried Echoing Fury, I tried Berserk Fury, and of course I tried Unrelenting Fury, and Bold Chieftains is by far being the smoothest. Now, when it comes to gems, also doing something a little unconventional here. We're using emeralds in the weapons. Reason being, we're only overpowering at best every 12 seconds through Skullbreaker. So, you know, I don't really like infesting in that damage. Like, overpowers hit really hard because you get the nice inherent multiplicative damage, and it does have 1000% additive damage on top of that without you even having it in your gear, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, 90% of our attacks are not overpowers. They're going to be mostly crits, so we're going to be using an emerald. And again, I felt like this, just having that more consistent damage, sped up my runs substantially. I went from like a tier 13 today to a tier 19, so huge differences. Armor, we're playing with sapphires here, so we have the damage reduction while fortified. Because we're playing from behind a Salix, the damage is going to our fury, not to our health. We can maintain a 100% uptime on fortified, so that's fantastic. As for resistances, you can put all of them on your boots. So you can have 3 on your boots, 1 on your chest, 1 on your gems. Or you can have 4 on your boots, 1 on your gem, and then you can have an extra DR on your chest, which is what I would have liked to have done if my Barb hadn't died to the goddamn domination bug. And yeah, so that's a good tip. If you're playing hardcore, do not use domination. Use anticipation instead. But for everybody else, domination is definitely the best one to use. But yeah, there's a bug with that where it can actually, you can get killed by your own vampiric power or execute you if you get CC'd below 35% HP. So that was fun. But yeah, moving on. That's a different video. Moving on. Vampiric powers, Pray the Weak, Metamorphosis. This is how we make enemies vulnerable. Make sure you're dashing through them. But it also gives us our Unstoppable, which gives us Tybalt's Will procs. You have to have level 1 Metamorphosis to make this build work, okay? Very important. Level 3 is going to be super clunky, and you're going to be running out of Fury all of the time. I like running Ravenous. Attack speed on this build feels godly, so this is huge. Blood Boil gives us another source of overpowers, and thank God we're not really using too many sources of like skills that can use these up. Steel Grasp can, so just bear that in mind. If you have not attacked an enemy for a little while and you have Blood Boil go off, Steel Grasp will consume that, so sometimes you might just want to go up and bonk with a hammer, then bring the enemies in with the Steel Grasp. That's up to you, but something definitely to bear in mind. And then, of course, yeah, Domination. 24% damage to stunned enemies. We do stun enemies in this build. We have Concussion. But this can backfire on hardcore and will kill you, so definitely don't use it. Or if you're a low-life Barbarian, if you play with damage reduction while injured, don't use this. Use Anticipation. Get that cooldown reduction on Wrath of the Berserker. That is very, very good as well. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the skill tree here, and we've done a couple of funky things, and I'll just explain why that is. So first of all, you'll notice I don't actually have any points in Rally and Cry, and there's a reason for this. I don't like Enhanced Rally and Cry when playing this particular build. I find being unstoppable for like 7.6 seconds can more often than not be a massive detriment to your survivability and damage. It means that you can't use Tybalts during that time to get yourself some Fury. And yeah, I took all the points out. Of course, we can still use it because we have a Shaco, so we have 4 points by default. And it worked way, way better. I could use it on cooldown. I could get the Martial proc from my other shouts, and I could get the resource regen buff from it and the movement speed. And it felt really, really, really good. So this was a big change for me, which I really enjoyed and think you should definitely try. We have Outburst, Toughest Nails. This is to help with disobedience because the bleed from the thorns will give us stacks. This is all pretty standard. Tactical Rallying Cry. Sorry, Tactical Challenging Shout for Fury. Power War Cry for some extra damage. We got pretty much everything here is quite normal. But here's a new thing. Slaying Strike. So with these higher tiers where the enemies are extremely tanky, and especially the Bloodseekers, when you can get them below 35% HP, your damage just moons, and you can delete them much, much, much more easily. And again, this is one of those things where I just found that it made my runs just way, way better. So definitely slap those points in there. Then we have Steel Grasp, of course. We have Fighters. This gives us an extra source of Berserking, which can be really, really useful. Pretty much standard counter-offensive stuff. You can move these counter-offensive points to defensive stance if you really feel like you need it. But, I mean, I play hardcore and I still keep it in counter-offensive. Invigorating Fury, very important that you have this. This is, you know, a big part of the Immortal Barb build because as you're getting hit to Sadigs and your Fury's going down, your health will go up and it'll keep you leveled out. Wrath of the Berserker, big DPS boost there for us. And then we have every single one of these passives. Heavy-handed, Brute Force, Wallop, and Concussion. This is going to help with our DPS massively. So yeah, make sure you slap all your points into there. And of course, Unbridled Rage for this build. And yeah, I mean, the playstyle for this one's pretty easy. What you're going to be doing is just grasping enemies in and make sure you dash through them at least once to make them vulnerable. Pop all your shouts, pop Wrath of the Berserker, and literally just hammer the living shit out of them until they're gone. And then in between your cooldowns, make sure you're using dashes to keep your Unstoppable up, so you're getting the damage boost from Tibolts and keeping your Fury up as well. And you can pretty much use shouts on cooldown. I'd highly recommend, though, making sure that you keep Wrath of the Berserker for like the big elite packs, or for any elite pack in the really high tiers. And then here's the Paragon board. So this is the new Paragon board that I was running. This will work for pretty much any overpower build, so get used to this layout. You're probably going to see it a little bit, but it's a more optimized version, and it also includes room for being able to go up to the level 50 Tears of Blood glyphs. So let me just quickly walk you through it. We have Aya here in the first node, and we have some extra points in Aya. Usually, if you get to the tier 50 version of this glyph, you'll want to remove, firstly, some points from here. So you can take these 2 points out here. You can probably take these 3 points out here and move them up into these gray areas once you hit level 50, not before, because there's not much point. We managed to hit all of our damage while berserking stuff. Obviously, this is really important because of Blood Rage. Blood Rage gives us a massive multiplicative damage source if we have lots of damage while berserking, so we go after that like a madman. Warbringer here is our source of Fortify, so important to pick that up. Lots of Max Fury, of course this scales with Hammer of the Ancients, but just generally helps with a Salix build. We have Wrath. Crit damage from this one gets tripled from the Grandfather, and also it gives us an additional source of Fury back. So this one is very nice to go for. Again, running through Blood Rage, picking up the Berserk damage up into Bonebreaker, and we have Martial up here. Not only does this pretty much like double all of these blue nodes here, so we get extra overpower damage, extra damage reduction while healthy, which we always are, because again, our health never gets hit unless you do something really wrong. And then we have the cooldown on the shouts. So our shouts will have like a 12-13 second cooldown with like almost an 8-second duration. So there's only ever like 4 seconds, 5 seconds where your shouts aren't up. So again, this is a big part of my variation of this build, which again, wait until you try. You're going to love this. And then we have, we've gone into Bonebreaker through the Carnage board here, picked up more damage while berserking. Got a bit of damage reduction while fortified, which is really nice to pick that up, like 8% damage reduction. And then Bonebreaker, this is primarily our primary source of overpower. And then we've gone over into the Decimator board for that really juicy 20% extra damage. But that is it. Big reason why we're using 4 here is, again, we have extra points to put into the Tears of Blood glyph when that gets to level 50, because it's like near impossible to run like an actual board with or fight like a 5 glyph board and get all of the points in here. And then that's it. Yeah, that's the build. Now, like I said, unfortunately, my HoTa Barb did die to the bug, so that'll be the end of my push for HoTa this season. But I am going through all of the main sort of like, I'd say like A tier and below builds to see how far I can push those. We've already done a tier 7 on a double swing build I made like within 5 minutes of dying, so absolutely loads of work to do there, and put a lot of potential, honestly, just to do a tier 7 right off rip. Really impressed with how that performed. But yeah, check that out. We're going to be doing that tomorrow and probably every day this week on stream. A link to that down in the description, along with this build planner. This will all, of course, be down in the description below. But yeah, don't forget to give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and catch you on the next one. Peace.